I mean, it does seem, and I want to hear way more, but it does seem like this is the type of thing where at least the opportunity is present for someone to get weird, right? Like this to me seems very delicate.
Yeah.
I can begin to at least see the signs here. What's up, guys? I'm here to tell you this episode is brought to you by Crowd Health. Crowd Health is a new, fast-growing, tech-enabled, well-capitalized, community-powered alternative to traditional health insurance. Founded by Andy Schoonover, a proven founder and entrepreneur with a successful track record, including a $100 million plus exit. By the way, Andy's been on this podcast in the past. Crowd Health uses the power of crowdfunding, member ratings, unlimited choice, and huge cash pay discounts to provide a simple, considerably less expensive solution to managing your medical bills. Crowd Health gives you full agency and sticks with you no matter where you move or what jobs you take on. You've heard of Big Pharma, but you may not know Big Insurance is actually the man behind the curtain. With 12 of the last 15 heads of the FDA taking jobs in Big Pharma and 64% of its funding coming from private industry, don't hold your breath waiting for the government to save the day. It's safe to say our system's broken. It's time to take your well-being into your own hands, and Crowd Health helps you do just that. You'll pay into your individual account monthly, and if you ever want to leave, you'll simply pay a $250 closing fee, and they will return the entire balance in your account to you because it's your account. Because it's crowdfunded, we all have a vested interest in each other's health. They even cover up to $300 a year in routine wellness visits. So far, for every $100 members have paid into their accounts, an average of only $30 has been paid out. So you can expect to see your money grow in your account over time. Take that, Big Insurance. Join today by visiting joincrowdhealth.com and using the promo code KLP to pay only $99 a month for the first 3 months. That's joincrowdhealth.com, promo code KLP. Joincrowdhealth.com. Get you some. All right. Well, Phillip Parkinson, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you.
Thank you for doing this. I was looking forward to it.
Yeah, appreciate you having me on.
I actually want to jump in at a very strange and probably unexpected place.
All right.
Oh, shoot. First of all, do you want a kombucha? Do you drink kombucha?
I do drink kombucha, but
you want one?
I'm good for now.
You good? All right. So this is Kembucha. Our friends in the neighborhood started making kombucha in the last, year.
Nice.
And it's legit. I know Kobe doesn't drink kombucha, but it's the best kombucha that I've had personally. Anyhow, I have some if you want one. You just let me know, Kobe, and grab it out of the refrigerator.
My wife actually makes ours.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
my wife made some too, but and does again too, but she doesn't CO2 it or whatever.
Okay.
And this stuff is like fizzy. It's
nice.
like it tastes really good.
Yeah, there you go.
Does your wife CO2 it also? Or
she
no?
does not.
Okay.
No.
Yeah, we don't. I don't think we know how to do it or have the stuff. I want to jump in at actually bedwetting, which is how we found you, I believe, for kids.
Yes.
Bedwetting for kids. We have a kid that is too old to be wetting his bed by most standards, but some kids have it. And then you got us on this, or Mariana got us on this mimosa pudica stuff.
Yes.
Parasite cleanse of some kind.
Yes, the Cellcore Parasite Cleanse.
Yeah, I want to hear more about that. But first, do you have thoughts on bedwetting for kids? What age should it generally, or does it generally stop? What age is it really a concern if it continues? All of that.
That one is really a hard question in that I don't know that there is, concrete information as far as ages.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, most kids, once the kind of the potty training has completed, so around age 2 or 3, a lot of kids are beginning to stop at that point. I would say, as far as concern, I have seen some kids within my office that are around like age 10, 11.
That's our situation.
Yeah.
Yep.
And that is a concern. But for me, it makes me wonder the underlying roots. So is it parasitic? Is there some sort of anxiety, stress, underlying like emotional trauma that they're holding on to? So there can be a wide range of things that are going on that are leading towards the bedwetting. I know for some kids, it's almost their body is not waking them up when they need to wake up. Have talked to some, and it's almost like a dream state for them. Almost in their dreams, they are going to, in their dreams, they go to the bathroom.
Yep.
And so it feels like to them they're in the right place and bedwetting occurs.
Yep.
So I'm not sure if I'm completely answering your question there.
No, that it is exactly. I mean, shoot, I wet my bed as a kid. I wasn't a consistent bedwetter, but I distinctly remember having a dream about going to the bathroom, and guess what? I was going to the bathroom.
Yeah.
So it happened, but I wasn't a consistent bedwetter as a kid. But Mariana is she I think she either had some consistent bedwetting problems like later on as a kid that most kids weren't, or it was someone else in her family. I forget which. But ours is, we have 5, and this just happened with one of them.
Right.
And I definitely won't call him out, but he's over 8 and under 12. It's like, this is the time where you would not be wetting the bed.
Yeah.
And which is why we wanted to come see you to see what was going on, because she's been working with our family nurse practitioner on it for some time, and no one seems to be that worried about it. Like, she's done some research on it. She has some experience with it. Yeah, I think even Jamie, our family nurse practitioner, is like, look, this just happens for some kids.
Yeah.
I don't know that he has had emotional trauma other than he's one of 5 kids, which is pretty emotionally traumatic enough, I think. But
it can be.
So from your perspective, you'd be looking at, you mentioned some things held in the body. Did you say trauma held in the body? Could that cause it?
It's we all experience things differently in life, and so that emotional stressor or trauma can be stored in various places within the body. So it definitely could be an emotional type stressor going on here.
It could also be parasites.
Could also be parasites.
Is that right?
It is.
Because is that so I was not at the muscle testing that we had 2 of our kids at.
Right.
You and I heard about it from Marianne. It sounded very intriguing, and also sounded a little bit like witchcraft.
I totally understand.
Yeah.
So
I was like, man, if I could get this guy on the podcast, I would love to hear about it.
Yeah.
Because this is the truth of this situation, of this subject matter in general. I kind of came from a very traditional, mainstream approach with healthcare. Like, my mom had us in the hospital, and I was raised Mennonite, and my wife was raised Amish, and you might think that they would be very similar, but we were raised pretty much, I just felt like we were raised very kind of mainstream when it came to healthcare. But Mariana, her mom had all 9 of their kids at home, and my oldest sister had her first baby in the hospital, and it turned like it was a fine birth. First of all, people can have their babies wherever they want.
Right.
I'm just glad I don't have to have any, but she had her first kid in the hospital. It was like $13,000, and everything went perfectly fine.
Mm-hmm.
And it was not the best experience. And then I think her second, maybe she had him at home. And then my next sister had her babies at home, and then I get married to Mariana, and she's like, well, why would, we have them at home? We get a great midwife, and you can have them at home. And now I'm thinking, well, man, what are we going to do next? Like start making our own clothes and churning our own butter and homeschooling, going on down the list.
Yeah.
And we haven't done, well, she does make her own butter now, but I have been stretched at multiple points along this journey where I will approach something, and to me it sounds crazy.
Mm-hmm.
And then I see it or experience it.
Yes.
And then I'm like, oh, okay, I get it now. That kind of makes sense.
Yeah.
And that has happened over and over and over in like the 16 years we've been married. And so I do give credit to Mariana, because countless times she will bring something up or want to do something or point something out or whatever it is that to me at first glance sounds ridiculous.
Yeah.
And then I learn more about it. I do my own investigation on it. I don't ever like to take her word for it. And then, and then I feel like, countless times I get it. I've gotten fully on board. But anyhow, the muscle testing thing I want to dig into, which is why I wanted to have you on, because that's another frontier.
Yes.
But first, this is, did you suggest this for the parasites, which could be behind the bedwetting?
So Cellcore's Parasite Cleanse is something that I use as far as with my own patients. Kind of my relationship with Jamie is I kind of aid her by doing muscle testing for her patients, and then send those findings to her so that she can make the recommendations from there. Mm-hmm. I do know that they use a lot of the same products that we do as well.
Okay. So when it comes to your work with Jamie, then, is it often that she is looking at a patient, coming up with some of her own opinions on what might be going on and what might be helpful, mm-hmm. and then some of them go over to you and get seen by you, and then without does she communicate with you first and you sort of back it up, or she does her own stuff, then mm-hmm. you do your own stuff, and then you compare notes? How does this work?
So yeah, usually she has done her own diagnostic work, and then I'm kind of like an extra diagnostic tool for her. Usually, hopefully backing up what she is kind of thinking, what is going on, and is kind of like a confirmation thing.
Okay.
And who is Jamie?
So Jamie Arroyo with Hopewell Family Care. Oh, what is this?
Stink bug.
Got a friend.
Oh yeah, this is a stink bug. Look at that. Thank you. Yeah, good catch, Kobe. Jamie Arroyo at Hopewell Family Care, and I think people can just go actually on Instagram and find Hopewell Family Care. I think it's just Hopewell Family Care. They're in Hermitage, and
she has lots of great information that she puts out on.
She really does. Yeah, and we found her pretty soon after we moved to Nashville. We moved to Mount Juliet in 2014.
Okay,
and found her. Excuse me, pretty soon after. And she has been, she's been super. It's hard to actually state how helpful she's been to us and our family.
And so many people. Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
She's gotten busy too. Like it's hard to, I think you don't really get to see, I don't know that new people signing up really like get to pick her now. She's so busy. Yeah. They have other family nurse practitioners in their office
who are all great as well.
They are. Yes. But our contact was Jamie, and we just love Jamie to death. And we really have a high level of trust
mm-hmm.
in her. Which, I guess maybe a lot of people would say that they do with their healthcare providers. But, one of the things that has been surprising to me is how often in the last number of years we'll be talking some friend, maybe they're out of town, maybe they're here or whatever, and they'll just be like, now what is this? This, is she a doctor? Like, why do you go there? I mean, I remember when I'm 38 now, and I have only been getting my blood tested annually for probably 6 or 7 years. And I remember the first time I didn't have a category for it in my mind. Like, well, what do I call her and ask to test my blood? What do I say? What's this called?
Yeah.
And I have been surprised how often in the last couple of years I have bumped into people my age that have never had their blood drawn.
Right.
Not one time.
Yeah.
So I don't know who they're trusting in terms of like who they consider their healthcare provider or whatever, their general practitioner. But I don't understand why people aren't getting their blood drawn, or at least know about this as something that could be helpful to do. So all these things that Jamie has been super beneficial for us with. Okay, so Jamie will see a patient, and then if she wants further clarity, or in what cases would she kick this patient over to you then?
Yeah, especially whenever there is the thought about parasites in particular. Because parasites are so hard to find in like regular testing. Of course, the kind of the common standard for parasite testing is like a stool test. So you have to send in a stool sample, and they search to see if there's parasites. The hard part with parasites don't want to be found. They want to stay in the host. But the most likely time that you could catch them in a stool sample is around a full moon. Full moon parasites are most active around full moon.
Why?
I believe it goes along with kind of like the cycles, kind of like of the earth. So, the water, the tides. That would be my best educated theory regarding parasites and why they would be the most active around that. I know from the time of working in hospitals that seems to be the time that things kind of go haywire. Is around the full moon. Yes,
around the time of full moon.
Babies are born a lot around full moons, and
Well, and what else? When you say haywire, what are we talking about here?
That's when like the emergency rooms get packed. It's very interesting. The kind of the phenomena around full moons has always been an interesting one to me.
So there's something about the energy or whatever?
Possibly, yeah.
The time of a full moon?
Yeah.
Where people might be more active, or they might be doing things they wouldn't normally do, or what's causing the emergency room visits, do you think?
I do wonder, it's a time when people are doing things that they wouldn't normally do. But it's, I don't know if it's because of kind of our chemistry, our makeup, since we are a lot of water. It's questions that, it's a question that I don't know that anybody has a concrete answer to. But it's something that you can kind of watch and look at all the times. And
fascinating. And in any case, you're saying parasites now when you say they're more easily discoverable over the time of a full moon, is this because there are more of them, or they're more active?
They're more active.
They're more active? And you notice them quicker in a stool sample or in muscle testing, or how would you notice them?
So around the full moon, as I was saying, for a stool sample, if you're trying to find them in a stool sample, it's more likely that you're going to find them around the full moon because of their activity.
I see.
But as far as like muscle testing, it doesn't have to be a full moon.
Okay.
Yeah.
So Jamie will most frequently send you a patient for you to do your testing on if it is possibly parasite related. Is that accurate?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So there's something about muscle testing that is particularly effective with picking up on parasites.
Yes.
I see. And then this is another thing that was, I don't know, I guess maybe a little bit of a surprise. The owner of our gym is super healthy.
Yeah.
And super fit, very buff, great dude, probably my age or a little younger. He texted me in the last couple of weeks and was like, have you ever heard of a Parasite Cleanse? I have heard of a Parasite Cleanse because this is one of those things that Mariana has had us do a number of times in the last, 15 years. Mm-hmm. And I usually go along with it if she's going to have the family do it, because apparently it's better if everyone in the family does it at the same time, because otherwise, if I have parasites and then, 3 people do a cleanse, but then I pass it back to them or whatever, right? Is that somewhat accurate?
It can be, yeah.
Okay.
And it kind of depending on the type of parasite, some are more easily transmissible between family members.
Yeah. So anyhow, he texted and said, wondered if I'd ever heard of doing a parasite cleanse. And I was like, oh, I've totally heard of it. We just started one right now. And I texted him a picture of this bottle. And he mentioned that it is not common in America. He was just learning about it, which was very much of a surprise to me. But he also mentioned that it's more popular in some other countries.
True.
Which I had never heard of.
Yeah.
Do you know anything about that?
Well, I do know in other countries that they will do a parasite cleanse at least once a year, especially countries like Africa seem to be some of the more prevalent as far as like really making sure that they're going after them at least once a year. Kind of similar to you, my upbringing was very much Western medicine. Came from a very conservative family. We went to the hospital, went to the doctor for everything. And so it wasn't probably our journey towards more holistic health, crunchy, probably started while I was in the Air Force, stationed over in England, and was really had my mind opened more to that more holistic care there, as far as like their births, like midwives and doulas are very heavily involved in a lot of the births. And, I'd never really even heard of that until we were there. And then a little bit later within the Air Force was when I was introduced to chiropractic, and the chiropractor who happened to help my wife out during her second pregnancy was a guy who practiced both chiropractic and the field of applied kinesiology, which is where kind of the muscle testing falls under the umbrella of applied kinesiology.
Okay.
And so that was my introduction to it, and kind of jump-started my interest in learning things. And even in chiropractic school, on the subject of parasites, all the way through school, it's still not really talked about as a thing. It's still more looked at as a third world issue. It feels like sometimes we in Western society, Western medicine, kind of stick our heads in the sand regarding parasites. But parasites are a lot more prevalent and common in the United States than anybody would ever think about.
Oh, yes. Yes. Apparently, you can sometimes see... Okay, when you start doing a parasite cleanse, they come out of your body, right?
Yes.
You pass them.
Yes.
And sometimes you can see them in your stool.
Yes.
Which is disgusting. But in theory, it's better to have them in your stool than living in your body, right?
Right.
And Mariana's also mentioned that sometimes the parasites can wind up in your brain. Is that true?
Or at least that headspace. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Personal story here kind of prompted me that it was time for me to do my next parasite cleanse. Recently, I woke up with just like extreme amount of sinus pressure and pain, and I was like, oh great, I'm getting sick. And so we had just invested in the Navage nasal irrigation, which is more like an automatic thing. So it will send the water up into one nostril and then it sucks out the other nostril.
Okay.
And
so similar to a
to the neti pot.
Neti pot, which
Yeah.
I've done.
But
that.
this is more automatic, and
Okay.
and it has a basin that it kind of catches everything.
Mm-hmm.
And in addition to the mucus that was being rinsed out, there were these little bitty parasites floating around in my water, and I was like, okay, it's time.
Wow, how'd you know there were parasites?
Just having studied parasites, and
Okay.
and they were so obviously different from the mucus. Yeah, just
Would they look like tiny little rice pieces or something?
yeah, tiny little
And they were in your
sinuses.
Sinuses?
Yeah.
Okay. Huh.
So
Yikes.
yeah.
So you did a parasite cleanse.
Yes.
And so do you suggest that people do a parasite cleanse on an annual basis, or what do you suggest when it comes to this?
Yeah. So that so after like the initial, if somebody has not done a parasite cleanse before, kind of the recommendation, it's usually like a 30-day process where, like number one, you want to make sure that first of all your detox pathways are open, ready to move everything out. Because as you go to work in killing these parasites off, the things that they've ingested, that they've taken on, can get released into the body. And so we don't want any sort of like backup of like toxins within the body.
Things that these parasites have maybe eaten, or
Yeah.
you're playing the host for them at that point, so they're
Yeah.
taking things in. And if you start to do a parasite cleanse, they can release those things.
Yeah, as they die off. And so that's why it's important for those detox pathways to be open. So making sure that we are supporting the kidney and liver functions, as well as often, especially with like the cell core parasite cleanse, there's included in that a binder. And so these binders are there to hopefully, in effect, as you're killing off the parasites, those binders will help to grab onto those toxins that are being released so that your body can go ahead and flush them on out.
Okay, so when you say making sure your toxin pathways or whatever you said are clear,
Yeah.
what are you referring to?
So
In the kidneys?
yeah, so specifically the kidneys and liver are big toxin organs that kind of process everything for us. Our pathways are of course include the lymphatic system as well. So another thing that I find a lot in people is that their lymphatic system is just not moving the way that it needs to. Which we can all experience that in some form. But if those pathways are stopped up, that's kind of an area where toxins can kind of just build up and kind of remain in the body. And once you reach kind of a certain load, that's when you start feeling ill.
A certain load of toxins?
Yeah.
Okay, but how do people get these toxin pathways open? Like, how do you get your kidney, liver? I assume the one thing you want to be paying attention to, because I heard this from Mariana, which is you want to make sure you're pooping plenty, passing this stuff. Aside from making sure that you're pooping every day or multiple times a day or whatever you're supposed to do, how do you make sure your toxin pathways are clear?
And on that, so many people aren't having bowel movements. Like
Every day?
Yeah.
People don't poop every day?
I will talk to people and ask them, and sometimes it's like every other day. And I'm like, you need to be having a bowel movement at least once a day.
What if it's 6 or 8 times a day?
If it is
Asking
that many,
for a friend.
if it's that many,
Kobe wanted to know.
I'm every other, so I'm kind of nervous myself.
Really? Dude, I will poop 6 times a day.
Yeah. Well,
I don't know if it's good or not.
I think it would all depend on the consistency and probably amount, but
yeah. It ain't much, and there's not much consistency there. I think it's like honestly, to be honest with you, I think it's the creatine, the whey protein. Okay. Like if I were to just not have any of that stuff and just have, I don't know, a sandwich or whatever, I don't think it would be like that.
Yeah, I can see that.
But I try to use the good quality protein that's I don't know the difference, but there's whey protein and there's other protein. I don't know a lot about that stuff, but I try to use the good stuff.
Yeah.
But is it all right, so someone should be pooping every day, but if they're pooping 6 times a day,
I can't say that for sure that it would be problematic, but if you are having like loose stools a lot, then that could be showing that your body is trying to deal with some things.
Okay, something's grumpy or okay, yeah. Okay, let's actually now go back, and I want to hear a little bit of your overall philosophy now for health.
Yeah,
but I'd love to hear how you got there.
Yeah.
So, take us back to, you said you were from more of a Western style of medicine,
sure.
Which I actually like that term, because the one term that has been popping up a lot, does pop up a lot, is traditional versus alternative. Mm-hmm. Never occurred to me until today. I was researching something, I think related to muscle testing for tonight, and I've seen this term 100 times, thousands of times, whatever, is traditional versus alternative. Mm-hmm. And the traditional is referring to Western. Yeah. And all of a sudden, for whatever reason, I never had this thought before. I was like, that seems actually a little bit backwards, because traditional I would think of as like stuff you've been doing for thousands of years. Yeah. But now we're calling the new stuff traditional, and the more holistic, actually traditional, the ancient stuff, we're calling it alternative. Yeah. Seems a little suspect. Like
there's a big rabbit hole that you could go down there.
Yeah, I would imagine so. Yeah. I would imagine so. And I think, like, with a lot of things, you could probably just follow the money. Yeah. And there's a lot of money in Western style of medicine, and there's a lot less money in it more holistic. Yeah. Anyhow, I'd love to hear your overall philosophy on health, and then kind of your journey into that.
Okay. As far as philosophy I truly believe that our bodies were created to heal. Given no resistance, no things that stop the body from healing, our bodies are incredible in regeneration and healing itself. I would say that's probably my biggest kind of where I come from. Trying to think of the word that I'm trying to come up with here.
You're just saying, if in general you can put good things into your body and stay out of its way and give it what it needs, it generally will take care of itself?
Yes. Yeah. So, unfortunately, as you probably well know, it's hard to find now food sources that have not been treated or messed with in some way. And all of that can mess with our body's like natural abilities. So that's where I try to, if I'm eating meat, I'm trying to find the best grass-fed, grass-finished meat that I can find. And then when I can, go after the organic fruits and vegetables. But often it's hard to find, especially if you're like on the move.
Mm-hmm. Well, real quick note on that, with it being hard to find clean things, I'm Googling this super quick because I want to make sure. I'm thinking sodium benzoate is what I'm thinking of. And yeah, that is right. So I was thinking recently how, I was looking for, what's it called? Anhydrous or non-hydrous. I was looking for distilled caffeine for something. And I wanted it to be from plants as opposed to chemical. And I wanted it to be clean.
Yeah.
And I found this place that had caffeine distilled, and it was in liquid form, which was perfect for what I was looking for. And you only use a tiny little bit of it. So like this jar or jug or whatever that I was going to buy was going to last for a long time.
Yeah.
And there was caffeine in it, of course. And then there was two other things that were fine, if not even maybe a little bit beneficial. And then there was this sodium benzoate. And I was like, I just Google it. Well, as it turns out, it's a preservative, and it has been linked with cancer. It's like, we're just selling this stuff, and it's in a lot, actually. It's in a lot of things. So now, I think that if I would have gotten that caffeine and it had a little bit of sodium benzoate in it, you know what also has a lot of sodium benzoate in it is diet sodas.
Yes.
They have a lot of that. And so my point is that I could have gotten that caffeine, used it for what I was going to use it for. It'd been fine. Mm-hmm. It probably would have been fine. I wouldn't have gotten cancer just from buying that one thing. But when you add up all these things and you're drinking lots of diet sodas and then you're having all over the place. I mean, if you have preservatives, it can cause cancer.
It's a compounding effect.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So I guess it's just one of those things where the money sort of creates the laws that it needs to create in order for this system to work, and whoever makes sodium benzoate, can make money on it. But it's not just making money on it; it's using it to make whatever else you want to make preserve. You know what I mean?
Yeah. To
sodas or whatever it is. Yeah, I don't know. It was just sort of surreal that I was like Googling the different ingredients because I never do that. And yep, it's linked with cancer. Right. So pass.
Yeah.
So your general philosophy is the body is meant to heal itself.
Yeah.
Give it what it needs. Try to stay away from these preservatives and toxins and abnormal influences, man-made influences. Is that how you kind of think about it? Okay.
So yeah, try to eat and live as clean as possible. Mm-hmm. And kind of what I tell my own patients, and then other people that kind of ask me along the way, because you can really get bogged down in whenever you're trying to make that switch to more healthy, there's so many things to do. Mm-hmm. And so people, they get bogged down, and there's so many things that I need to do. And I say, take one step, switch one thing out, make one change. And then after you've done that, then do the next thing. Mm-hmm. You'd be amazed at what changing one thing can do for the body.
Yes, I totally agree with that approach. And I think that one place that someone could start is when it comes to healing, that letting the body heal itself, is just start to be a little slower on the Tylenol, the Mucinex, the Tum Tums,
yes.
It's like it's actually pretty remarkable how, I guess, mainstream, most people, a lot of people, I don't know, like any little thing that they're feeling, we're just treating symptom. It's like this whole system is set up to treat symptoms.
Yes.
Well, we're not actually getting to the cause.
Exactly.
So, and so starting to slow down on treating symptoms and then focusing on putting plenty of water, real food into this machine.
Movement.
And movement.
Yeah.
Yes, that is a great place to start. Great place to start. I think coming from the background that I came from, I mean, I said that we had more traditional or like more Western style medicine. That is true. That is true. But also just growing up as a Mennonite, I mean, we had cars and electricities and houses and it looked like this, but still it was closer to like the ancient ways of life. And I think that was helpful. So I think it's like in when you get out kind of into the real world a little bit, and then I also think particularly maybe in cities, I don't know if that's true or not, but where you just do bump into this whole thing of treating the symptom. Yeah. That is now, it seems to me like that's what healthcare is all about. You just treat the symptoms. Like there was a friend who had a kid with an allergy to something, and the doctor prescribed anti-allergy medicine, and it was food related. So like this poor kid was about to be on anti-allergy medicine when the problem was he had to stop drinking milk. Like I'm not even educated, and I know that. You know what I mean? Like how did we even get here?
Right. And I think too, whenever we start talking about food allergies and things like that, looking for the why in that as well. Not simply stopping that food, which for the time being may be a good thing. So, like people with gluten intolerance, why did their body suddenly become intolerant to gluten, when that has been something that has been a food base for generations, right? So why isn't that body processing that? Or what is it in that particular type of gluten, whether it's bread or pasta or whatever the source is it possible that wheat or grain was treated with something that the body doesn't like? It's not necessarily the gluten that the body doesn't like. It's what that was treated with. That the
pesticides that were sprayed all over the wheat that made the gluten.
Because it's amazing to me the amount of people that say they have a gluten intolerance, but if they make homemade bread with organic flour, how it does not affect them the way store-bought bread would.
Yeah. And Mariana makes sourdough bread, and she has many now customers that can eat her sourdough bread that are gluten intolerant, and it doesn't bother them at all. I was thinking, though, that was more from the sourdough piece, but it could also be from the organic piece, because she does use organic flour. Because you're saying if someone is gluten intolerant and they make their own bread, but it's just regular bread, it's not even sourdough.
Right.
But they use organic wheat or flour.
Yeah. I mean, that's what my wife was doing. So whenever I first met her, she said, I'm gluten intolerant. I can't have bread. And so she had been off bread for a little bit. And I think we were in England, and she had some bread over there, and she was like, wow, this isn't affecting me. And so, and then, a little bit later, we come back to the States, and she had some bread again, and it started affecting her. And so she's like, well, maybe my body just needs to be off of this for a little bit again. And then as we were kind of becoming more holistic and a little more crunchy, she started making her own bread and finding like organic flour to make it with. And we've made sourdough as well, but just, regular bread, and just making sure that we know kind of the source in making that. And she absolutely has no problem with that.
Interesting. So in that particular case, it would be accurate to say that particular person is less gluten intolerant and more pesticide intolerant, correct? But what's fascinating about that is I've never once heard that term, pesticide intolerant. I know I am.
Yeah.
I know I do not process toxins as good as most people. I have that MTHFR thing.
Yeah. Yep.
And I don't naturally process toxins as good as the average person, maybe, or some people. But so all that just means is I need to take extra care to put less toxins into my body.
Yeah.
And then do things to move the toxin through, like exercise daily, or in our case, we were able to get a sauna in the last year, and I think that helps too.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm a big proponent of saunas, of infrared sauna.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay. So, okay, is there anything else you want to say about the journey into this then? Because it doesn't sound like this was always your philosophy.
No. I mean, like I said, grew up going to doctors. I had chronic tonsillitis, which probably now, as I'm looking back, I'm like, was that strep? What? But it was always tonsillitis, and here's your penicillin pills all the time growing up. And so, yeah, it wasn't until, like I said, while we're in England, I think is when my mind first kind of got opened up to, there's some other ways of going about this. But then while we were in Colorado, my wife was pregnant with our second, and I came home from work one day, and she was on the couch. We had an almost 2-year-old toddler running around the house, and she was basically like, I can't walk. She said, every time I try to get up and walk, it feels like my hip's going to pop out of socket. My low back is killing me. She was pretty heavily pregnant at this time. And I'm like, all right, let me see what we can do. And so basically had to carry her to bed that night, and I called up my brother who lived in the same area, and said, this is going on. Do you know anybody that could help her out? And he said, well, I know a chiropractor. Maybe he could help out. And so he gave me his number, called him up. He was kind enough to open his practice up to us early on a Saturday morning. She barely walked into that appointment after he worked on her, adjusted her. She was able to walk out. And then through chiropractic treatment throughout the rest of the pregnancy, she was able to do really well. And so it was
this the first time that she or you had been to the chiropractor?
Yes. Yeah, that was our first introduction to chiropractic.
Really?
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. Like I said, very much Western medicine mindset. Went to the doctor, you got a pill for everything.
Yeah. How long ago was that?
So that would have been 2002.
Oh, okay. Yep.
Or 2003.
Okay.
That we were in Colorado. And it was around that time that I was trying to figure out, am I staying in the Air Force or am I getting out? And so after kind of watching him do what he did, I knew that I wanted to do something in healthcare. I've always been intrigued by how the body works.
Oh, really?
Before I went into the Air Force, I was an athletic training and sports medicine major.
Cool.
I thought that's where I would end up. So I went into the Air Force thinking, okay, I'll get some GI Bill and be able to help me pay off the rest of my college for athletic training. But then after kind of being around this chiropractor and seeing what he did, both chiropractic-wise, but then figured out he also did applied kinesiology. And so seeing how he helped others through that process as well, I'm like, that's how I want to help people. And so ultimately made the decision to get out of the Air Force, found a chiropractic school in St. Louis, and began my chiropractic journey there. And like I said, especially in regards to like parasites, we might have brushed over this subject of parasites in like a biology class. but it wasn't really a thing like, oh, you need to be on the watch out for things like this. It really wasn't until I got out of chiropractic school. One of my first continuing education seminars, I went there, just trying to get my hours in, learn a bit more, and somebody got up and had like a whole session on parasites, and I was like, wow, what is this? And so that really opened up my eyes to the presence of parasites. And then just I would say the majority of what I've learned it has been through continuing education these past 14 years of practice. So,
When did you guys move to Nashville?
we moved here about 5.5 years ago. Yeah.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
That recent?
Yeah.
Where were you before this?
So before that, we were down in Florida. So after I graduated,
Sorry to hear that.
After I graduated from chiropractic school, we ended up staying around the St. Louis area, but I knew I didn't want to practice full time in like St. Louis because it seemed like everybody graduated from school there and ended up staying there. So it was a very saturated market. And so moving down to Florida, I thought that would be kind of the place, where I was going to set up shop. That's where we were going to be for a while. But God had other plans for me. That it never felt like the right place.
Oh, yeah?
Right fit. I very much enjoyed the ocean. Loved being there. But whenever we had the chance to move to Nashville, it felt like the right place, right fit. I was born in Murfreesboro, grew up in Northeast Arkansas, but my whole time growing up, we always came back to Middle Tennessee. And so for me, this felt like coming home.
Okay.
Yeah.
Did you have family here, or?
Did not have any family here whenever we moved here. But now, my mother-in-law lives with us, and then my brother and his family recently moved to Franklin. So we have family here now.
Cool. And you have a couple of kids, right?
We have 4 kids altogether.
4 kids.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
But they're on the older. They're
on the older side. Have 2 boys, 2 girls. It goes boy, girl, and they're
cool.
20, 18, 16, and 11.
Oh man, good for you!
Yeah.
Congratulations.
So we've gotten 2 of them through kind of the homeschool process.
Okay.
We've homeschooled all 4 of them. One's in college, and one decided she wanted to go the cosmetology route. So, kind of following in mom and dad's footsteps, she said, I want to do more holistic care. So she's really been out there searching for more holistic products, things that won't add to the toxic load burden for the body. And so she's out there doing her thing now.
Very cool. Do you, was the homeschooling thing a good experience now, and mostly in hindsight, would you think that was good?
Yep, for sure. Yeah. As far as like our goals for our kids, and the thing that I think I've been most impressed with homeschooling is seeing how each kid learns, and how within the homeschool process, we're better able to give them the chance to learn the way that they learn, instead of it being a one-size-fits-all. We can cater it for each one.
Okay, applied kinesiology, is that how you say that then?
Yes.
Okay, and you actually just set that on this side here, that way it's not in the video, because the camera's coming this way.
Apologize.
No, you're good. I think we set your water on that side too. Just sit over there. Okay, applied kinesiology. Let's dig into that.
Yeah.
What are we talking about here? Let's get it right into the witchcraft.
and you're like, those thoughts there were so many thoughts that I had along the way as well.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Because like I said, I grew up very, very conservative. My dad was a preacher. I'm a double PK, preacher's son and a principal's son.
Whoa.
So, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. So it but the more I learned about the human body, the more it made sense to me. So whenever I talk about muscle testing, I kind of like to talk about it like this. I view the body as kind of like a big electrical circuit, right? So not only do we have that nervous system, so that carries messages from brain to body back to brain. So we have all those neurons firing at all times. But as well, whenever you look at the body as a whole and break it down to the most simple components, so every muscle, tissue, and organ of the body is made up of a group of cells, right? All different types of cells. But whenever you break cells down to their most simple components, they're made up of atoms. Mm-hmm. And atoms are like units of energy. So really, whenever I look at the body, it's like this big electrical circuit that has this electrical energy that is flowing throughout it, as well as we all have this kind of like an electric field around each one of us. And so that's really what we're kind of dealing with within the field of applied kinesiology is I kind of liken us to almost like human electronics technicians. We're trying to figure out what things could be going on within the body that is keeping your electric circuit from functioning as optimally as it needs to. So whether that is the presence of another organism within the body that, again, has its own kind of electrical presence itself, or a toxin within the body that is hindering our body. So whenever I talk about muscle testing, as I introduce a toxin or a parasite, so what I use, I have a test kit that has vials that contain samples within an ionic solution. So that ionic solution, as I introduce it to the body, there would be a reaction. It's an electric reaction, though. The particular type of testing that I utilize is something called resonating, which is kind of a subset within muscle testing. Have you ever had muscle testing done yourself?
I haven't. Jamie actually suggested that I go see you.
Okay.
Like a year ago-ish, and I don't know why I didn't, to be honest.
I can understand. I can understand hesitancy though.
Yeah, but actually, I like to try new things. It wasn't hesitancy. I think it was one of those situations where whatever I was experiencing, then I saw Jamie, and then it wasn't so much, and then some time's gone by, and now I kind of forgot who was that guy, and the next thing you know, it's 6 months, and I just like, well, I just moved on.
Yeah.
But I would love to go experience it sometime. So I've never had it.
So within muscle testing, kind of a lot of the I would say what most people experience with muscle testing is utilizing like the arm. So having somebody's arm kind of straight out in front of them, you press down on the arm, have them resist you, then you introduce some sort of toxin or whatever, and see, does that change the muscle testing. With resonating, what I have found really helpful within that is because from the amount of vials and things that I'm testing, what I was finding is I'm tiring out the arm, tiring out that shoulder muscle pretty quick. As well as I work a lot with kids, and kids don't necessarily like to be messed with. And then sometimes have some special needs kids that have like sensory issues, and so they don't like to be touched. And so this particular technique of resonating allows me to do the testing without having to physically touch the body. So I'm just introducing the vial to the body's electric field, so just having to get it close enough. And as I'm testing, I'm just using a simple instrument that allows my finger to glide along it. And as I introduce each one of the vials to the body, I continue testing, and my finger should continue to to glide smoothly throughout the whole process, unless there's a presence of one of these objects within the body. And then what I find is there's resistance on my end. It's like suddenly it will go from smooth to sticky. And sometimes you can even hear like an audible like squeak start coming out. And that lets me know I need to slow down and figure out, oh, okay, there's something going on here. Let's see where it is showing up within the body. And then let's also figure out, okay, what is the presence, or how heavy, how heavy is the presence of this particular item within the body.
How do you find that out? How heavy the presence is?
So to do that, I'm starting out close to the body, and I just continue kind of pulling it away from the body until it becomes smooth again.
The stronger the presence in the body, the farther away you can get from the body before that
Becomes smooth again.
That thing gets smooth again.
Kind of lets
Sure.
me know how heavy the burden is of this particular item within the body.
These vials that you're talking about, are they little glass vials? What
Yes.
are these? What do they look
Yeah,
like?
yeah. So they're like little glass vials.
And you take the lid off?
No, they stay within the whole time.
So the what are we calling it that's getting communicated or transferred out of the glass vial? Energy?
Yeah,
Chemicals?
So we call it the energetic presence
Okay,
of this particular item.
So the energetic presence of that's inside these glass vials transfers through the glass.
Right. So
you're not taking the lid off of
No,
that. You're
no.
not putting a little bit on their skin.
No.
Whoa, that's crazy.
Yeah.
Wow. Goes through the glass vial.
Yeah. And so and like I said, it is within a ionic solution. So it gives it the better chance of it as we introduce it to our own electric field of there being some sort of reaction there if it is present within the body.
Okay, the ionic solution in the glass vial helps amplify that.
And-
What is an ionic solution?
So that is it's a great question. That is a solution. I have to look up the term, but basically there's like
see what we
a
found
charge. Did I leave my?
We can just Google it and see.
Yeah.
But it's a liquid.
Yes.
It's a liquid.
Yeah.
And what is the thing? It sounds like the ionic solution is not the thing that gives the energy. There's something else in there. What is the something else in there?
So it is. I have a few different vials of different types of parasites. Then mold fungal toxins, candida, different types of bacteria or virus, as well as like heavy metals, lead, mercury, aluminum, things like that. Environmental toxins, herbicides, pesticides, glyphosate, ammonia.
I see what you're doing. So you have, okay, in the case of a parasite, it's clearly a dead parasite. And at this point, it's a dead parasite?
Yes.
Is it actually a parasite, or is it like a toxin from a parasite?
It is a sample of the parasite.
Okay, which has long been dead, but it's still emitting enough of a signal that it can interact with the signal coming out of the body if there is one there.
Mm-hmm.
Man, that's wow. Like it's easy to, or easier and kind of easy to see how like a pesticide, for example, would communicate out of that vial. But a parasite, that seems harder. You know what I mean? It seems...
Which, that's more, like a living organism type thing.
Yeah.
It's it's that sample that kind of reacts with the thing that is inside of you. Mm-hmm. So one of the first things that came up here as far as like ions, ionic compounds within a aqueous solution or dissolved in water. So ions are free to move from place to place. So again, like electricity. So we're thinking of like positive, negative charges here. And so in this definition, it talks about ionic compounds cannot conduct electricity when solid, as their ions are held in fixed positions. But in that aqueous solution, they can move. So whenever I am testing, I kind of liken myself to a almost like a I don't know if you're familiar with a piece of equipment called an ohm meter. So while I was in the Air Force, I was an electronics technician, and one of the pieces of equipment that we had was an ohm meter, which helped us to kind of measure the resistance within a circuit. So as I'm doing this resonating, I'm in effect acting as a human ohm meter. It's passing from solution as I'm holding it towards the body, conducting through, and in my other hand is where I'm holding the instrument.
Is it conducting? All right, let's say you're holding the vial in your right hand, and then the instrument in your left hand, and then
so
the body.
Yeah.
Is it communicating from your left hand up your left arm, across your shoulders, and down your right arm into the vial? Or is it communicating from the person through the air to the vial, through the air to your instrument?
Yes.
Through the air.
From the person, vial.
Yep.
To me.
Okay, but when it gets to you, is it going through your body over to the instrument, or is it communicating to the instrument through the air over here to your left hand?
Through my body. Yeah. So
Okay.
I'm acting kind of like a electrical conduit.
So you need to physically hold the vial. And you need to physically hold the instrument.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. So if you set the vial on a table and then just
have my
work
instrument,
the instrument over here, that wouldn't really work.
It'll just sit here and glide smoothly throughout the whole process.
Well, I can, okay. All right. I can begin to see the case for the science behind it.
Yeah.
I mean, it does seem, and I want to hear way more, but it does seem like this is the type of thing where at least the opportunity is present for someone to get weird, and now they have now they're making judgment calls.
Yeah.
They're sloppy.
Yeah.
They're not reading the signals right. Like this to me seems very delicate.
Yeah.
I can begin to at least see the science here, but it also seems like it's something you could abuse very quickly and readily, right?
I think for me, in finding this particular technique, it really took a lot of the burden off of me, because a lot of the times in muscle testing, if I'm using someone else's arm and I'm pressing down on their muscle, having them resist me, me being the contemplator that I am, I'm always thinking about, am I providing the same amount of pressure every single time?
Right.
Did I just feel what I thought I felt? Was that them or was that me? And so I'm in my head a lot because I don't want to introduce any sort of bias in any test that I do. So with this, it is taking that away for me, in that it's either smooth or it's not smooth. I'm not applying any extra pressure. So it's either there or it's not there. And so that for me has helped me know I'm not introducing any sort of bias into the testing process.
Yes. It seems like a case could be made that the vial and the instrument method over the pushing down the arm method could be a little more superior, right? Is that
For me, it is.
For you, it is? Okay.
Yeah.
Would some people argue against that?
I would say some people are extremely confident in their muscle testing skills, and would say I introduce no bias in my in that, and if they're able to do that, then I say more power to them.
And what they're doing is, can you just briefly talk through then what happens when you're pushing down the arm? Are you holding the vial close to their arm and pushing down on it?
So in that case, we would.
What's this, Kobe?
Perfect. Yeah. So that is.
Oh, this is pushing down the arm.
Yeah.
So she's pushing down on the arm to figure out.
So yeah, you can place.
Okay, so
you can
there's the
place
vial.
vials
The vial is on the body.
On the body. Yep.
And she's pushing the arm and presumably getting different resistances.
Yeah.
Based on what's in the vial and what might be in the body.
Yes.
Which, she would probably argue for. To me, that seems a little less scientific, or maybe a little less precise.
Again, I think it depends on the practitioner and their comfort level. For me, again, like there is a technique that I do utilize within my practice where I do use the arm, because for this particular thing, I believe that physical touch is key, and that technique is a neuro-emotional technique that I utilize for helping to identify if there's an emotional stressor to a physical issue that is going on within the body. But that I'm not really using any sort of like vial or anything like that.
Okay.
We're specifically like asking the body questions as we're testing and seeing how the body reacts to the question, basically.
So can we hear more about that? An emotional response is, you said, something going on in the body?
Yeah.
What is that?
Yeah. So throughout life, as we're growing up, we're exposed to different types of emotional stressors, whether that's fear, anger, grief, non-emotive, there's a whole list of like different emotions that we can be exposed to throughout life, and if we don't know how to process those, we can sometimes kind of stuff those down inside. You might have heard somebody saying, I just kind of stuff all my feelings. It's actually kind of a true thing. The body stores and remembers. And what I found was, and whenever I found neuroemotional technique, was I was running into, almost like running into a wall with my patients. Like I could get them to to a certain point of healing, but couldn't seem to get them past that point. And so I heard about this technique called neuroemotional technique, and it was found out that it was all about finding out if there is an emotional stressor to a physical issue that is going on in the body. And then so through muscle testing, we figure out, we work to find out, is there an emotional stressor to this physical issue, or is it just purely a physical issue? Sometimes I do run into that. But if there is an emotional stressor, then we work to find out, okay, what is that emotional stressor? And then once we have identified the emotion, then we work to find out, okay, at what age did we first take this on? Because what we're trying to get to is the root. And so at what age do we first take this on? And then through muscle testing, I can get it down usually to like an age range. And whenever I get it to that age range, most of the time people will I see like almost a shift in their eyes, and they're like, oh, well, this happened whenever I was this age. And so then through kind kind of doing some mind body work. So it's holding on to that picture or that feeling around that certain event in life, taking in a deep breath in and out, along with do some taps along the spine. So those spinal areas where I'm kind of doing those taps correlate with both the emotion and sometimes the organ systems that can be affected by that. And then what most people kind of relate, what they feel is there's almost like a dissipation, that picture or that feeling kind of gets cloudy. It's not as clear anymore. And so from there, we'll go back and retest, okay, did the work that we're trying to do, was that effective? Or are there other emotions that are tied into this same picture and feeling? And sometimes there are multiple emotions that are surrounding this event.
So does the vial represent a specific emotion?
So in this case, we're not using vials.
Okay.
Yeah. So in this case, we're purely using word. So that's kind of more for the what we call like a body entry point. And then there's also what they call like a mind entry point, where it's taking a statement that we want to be true. It may not necessarily be true, but we want for that to be true, which can be a statement as simple as "I'm okay" or "I feel safe." And you would be amazed at how many people, their body does not agree with that.
Whoa. Huh. So you can, okay, in the case of you're going to have someone make the statement, "I'm okay."
Mm-hmm.
What are you doing when they're making that statement?
So as they're saying, "I'm okay," I'm applying a kind of a steady pressure to their arm. And they'll say, "I'm okay." And if their body doesn't agree with it, no matter how much they want to resist me, they can't resist me. Their arm will release.
But they might, to use an extreme example that's a little absurd, they might, we can use a different example. But if they would say, "I'm unsafe," they might be able to resist you? You know what I mean? Like if they say,
like if they were to say,
okay.
I am unsafe.
Yeah. No. I mean, you were just saying, okay, let's say that you're doing it to me and I say, "I'm okay," but my arm goes down. But if I say something that is true to me, actually, that I actually inwardly, thoroughly believe, I'm able to resist you.
Yeah.
In a way that I'm not able to when I say I'm okay.
Like if you say, "I'm okay," you could very well stay strong with that.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm okay with an example.
I'm okay with a past relationship, or I'm okay with,
it could change things. Because the body, it's hard to explain why the body keeps score, but the body keeps score. I recently went through the loss of my mom, November of 21. So we just had her 1 year anniversary of her passing. And I found even within myself, I thought I was dealing with things pretty well, but was going through kind of like a massage therapy where they were kind of doing like some organ release type things on me, and like got over my liver, and like suddenly I had like this flood of emotion just hit me, like during the middle of the massage. Teared up and like tears started flowing, and I'm like, what is going on here? And they're like, oh, well, sometimes grief or whatever emotion could be stored in an organ, and we just released some of that for you. So
were they trying to help you in this particular way, or you were just getting a random massage?
Yeah was just getting a massage. Was just getting a random like.
Oh wow, well, that's fascinating.
Yeah, it wasn't for the purpose of trying to release it.
Yeah,
any emotions, but I figured out that was one place at least that I was storing some emotion.
So what gets you to this point with someone? Do they come in saying, I feel like I'm carrying some emotional trauma or baggage that I can't let go of. And can you use your methods to help me with this? Or are you helping someone with what they thought was parasites? And next thing you know, you're working on something like this.
Both.
Okay.
Yeah. I have some people that come into me and they have specific things that they want to work on. Like they know that they have experienced trauma in certain areas and are just having a hard time figuring out how to get that to release. And then I have other people who come in with a physical issue, whether that's like a chronic shoulder, neck pain, headaches, things like that. And so in those cases, we would contact those specific areas in the body, test that out, and then we add in what's called an emotional point, which is simply taking the palm of the hand, it goes right across the forehead. And whenever you add in that emotional point, then you're testing again to see, is there an emotional component to this physical issue that is going on? And if it changes the muscle testing, then it indicates to us that there may be an emotional stressor to this physical issue.
Whoa. So you could be doing your test on someone for pesticides, and maybe that may or may not be the best example.
Yeah.
You're giving someone just
let's say it's gut dysfunction.
Okay. Gut dysfunction.
Yeah.
And you can do your vial and your instrument, and that test comes out a certain way, and then you say, all right, now we're going to do that again, but hold your right palm over your forehead, and I'm going to do this again, and you can sometimes get a different response. And if you do get a different response, it means there's an emotional connection.
So not necessarily in the realm of like using those vials to test. Those are kind of like two separate types of work that I do. So one is identifying or trying to help identify the energetic presence of whatever the particular item may be within the body. And within NET, neuroemotional technique, it's helping to identify, is there an emotional stressor to the physical issue that is going on within the body? So, so this would be, let's say we've done our cleanses, but still don't feel like we're progressing as much as we'd like to. Then we could, so in that case, let's say it's gut dysfunction, would contact over the intestines, test. Have you add in that emotional component, test. If the muscle testing changes, that lets us know there may be an emotional stressor to that, and then we would kind of go from there.
Okay. And when you're saying an emotional stressor to a physical issue, sounds to me like you had this physical issue and then the emotional stress is coming because of it, but isn't it actually the opposite?
No. So yeah, it's that emotional stressor has been there,
causing the physical issue, right?
Exactly.
Okay. And I think
and so once we get to the root of that emotional stressor and help identify that and get that to release, then what we find is that there are that there's like a release within the body.
It can sometimes unlock the physical issue or resolve it, or it dissipates or whatever. And don't they talk about this in that book, The Body Keeps a Score?
I believe they do. Yeah.
Which was not written super recently, but I think it got popular in the last couple of years. At least I saw somewhere that, or heard someone say that's, I know this is very popular right now or whatever, and then went on to say his thing. I read a good chunk of that this past summer of 22. I think it wasn't the easiest book to read.
Yeah.
But it was fascinating. And they do talk. I mean, that's The Body Keeps the Score. They're literally talking about, that's kind of the premise of the book.
Yeah.
Like some of the stuff you can just keep in your body.
Yeah. I've had people that have come in with migraines, and after figuring out that there's an emotional component, they come back and they're like, I haven't had a migraine in weeks. Like I used to get them every day, and now it's been since the last time that I came in. And so there's definitely something to it.
do they fall back into migraines then after a few weeks, or
if there's like more work to do?
Okay.
Because like I said, there can be, once we find a picture, like we've identified the emotion, we've identified what age they first took it on, we've identified kind of the surrounding event. There can be other emotions that are tied into that as well. Mm-hmm. So while we've done some good work in identifying kind of the major emotion to that, until we've kind of taken care of everything that is surrounding that, their body can kind of go back into that state again.
It can sort of relapse into that state, you're saying?
Yeah.
I think this is a few years ago. I was at the seeing a counselor in a session, and he was like, "Now, where are you feeling this in your body?" And I was like, I just felt like someone was choking me. Like I just felt like I couldn't, like you barely breathe. Yeah. My neck was tight, you know, right in the front, right in here. Mm-hmm. And he was like, "That's shame. That's where you feel shame."
Yeah, a lot of people that feel like they have no voice or can't speak about things.
Is that tied in with shame?
Yeah.
Interesting. What are there particular organs or parts of the body that are most commonly associated with different emotional events or traumas or issues? Like shame, for example, or
like grief.
Okay. Yeah.
Is a lot of times like it's more often than not lungs. So often if people say I've had like this chronic like respiratory thing going on, what I find is like unresolved grief within that. A lot of the time gut and intestines is associated with anger.
Really?
Holding on to anger, unresolved anger. I wish I had brought my list of all the organs, but I have like a breakdown within my office. I have a poster that kind of shows that breakdown of like where these emotions can kind of show up within the body.
So my gut's totally screwed. I mean, this was when we still lived in New York. We may or may not have had a kid at the time. I mean, this was probably 12 years ago, 10 years ago, at least 10 years ago, probably a little more. We were married for 16, so somewhere between 16 years ago and 10 years ago, we were on a walk on a Sunday afternoon. It was a season of life where I was Sunday afternoons, and as the evening came on, I just felt this dread. I was just hating whatever was going on Monday mornings at that time, or the week, or whatever. Something about Sunday nights, I just hated it, man. It was, anyhow, we were on this walk, and we had just eaten, and I felt sick, and I remember just mentioning, I feel sick again, and Mariana's like, what now? And I'm like, yeah, I ate. You feel sick. Everyone feels sick after they eat. She's like, no, not everyone feels sick after they eat. And I'm like, they don't? Like, I always feel sick after I eat. And so, and even now to this day, if I don't eat pretty clean, my gut just I will feel sick again.
Yeah.
One thing that did help was the meat diet has helped me a couple of times where I'll only eat meat for some period of time.
Yeah.
The longest I did that was from April to July of 2020. And man, it healed my gut. I don't know how else to say it. It just healed my gut.
I have seen people, talk about as far as like going carnivore and like how it's changed things like that, help change their like A1C.
Like what's that?
So diabetes. So
okay.
That's one of the markers that they're looking for as far as with diabetes.
Anyhow, all that to say is I have had longstanding gut issues. So is it possible that I have unresolved anger?
It's possible.
Is it probable?
I'll say it's possible.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, I don't like to ever really tell anybody that like, yeah, this is definitely what's going on.
Sure.
Until we can kind of
Yep.
sit down face to face. And
Yep. Is there other emotions tied in with the gut, or is it anger is the big one?
Anger is probably the biggest, but there are some others.
I see.
Yeah.
So the emotional thing, that is very interesting. This is getting a little off. No, it's not. It's not off topic. There might not be anything to this, but sometimes I wonder if our entryway into or progress towards the new heavens and the new earth is going to look maybe a little different than or at least different than I had thought at one point.
Yeah.
Because like what we're talking about is, well, I guess, you know what, this may not be new. To me, it sounds new. I mean, maybe they've been doing this for thousands of years. I guess you tell me. But this is, I think to some of us, this is new. And if we can have more healing based on the things that we're discovering with emotions and body, if we can have more physical healing based on emotional healing, that's sort of groundbreaking, because if our bodies are in better state and operate better and are healed better, we're probably going to live a little longer. At least our quality of life is going to be longer for a longer period of time. And if that trend continues, we can just get like more areas of healing. And I mean, God is ultimately behind anything good, right? So anything good comes from God. So it's not like, oh, you know, hold on, God, while we fix ourselves. Anything good comes from God. So as some of these breakthroughs happen and we get more advances in some of these things, and we can actually heal a gut from emotional healing, I mean, to me, this sounds like the direction of the new heavens and the new earth, right? I mean, this sounds like it's like, so I wonder sometimes if our entry point into it might look a little different than we thought.
Than it did in the past.
Yeah. But even if that's not entirely the case, and it just helps us to live a fuller, more capable life full of more joy now because of less some of these issues, well, then that's a win all of its own.
Yeah.
So so you can test for emotional issues, physical issues that might be born out of emotional trauma. And when you discover them, are you fixing them by fixing the physical part, which then heals the emotional, or are you sending them to like a therapist or something to heal the emotional, which then fixes the physical?
Yeah, I mean, if I'm kind of hitting a wall as far as like helping somebody in processing, you know, that physical issue, yeah, definitely, I'm sending out to therapists or counselors who are more equipped with, you know, things of the mind than I am. But I would say for the most part, I am working to once I've identified if there is an emotional stressor, I do my best to work with them to help get that to release. You talked about kind of God and our creator, and he's our healer. You know, I very much believe, especially, you know, within these NET sessions, I may be a little bit different than some practitioners in that, you know, if I know that you're okay with talking about God and kind of faith, I say, can we invite God into this process? And so we'll often start off a session with prayer and just kind of asking for his guidance and thanking him for the healing, and then at the end close that off, because my mind keeps going back to the scripture that talks about a man can like clean out his house, which, you know, talking about the body, and, you know, the spirit, evil spirit goes away and doesn't find a home, and so it comes back and brings 7 of its friends with it. So I very much believe that, you know, once we've cleaned house, that it's so important to ask God to just kind of heal that and seal that. So,
what comes to mind when you say that is, it seems to me that we are okay with the spiritual, and we're okay with the physical.
And sometimes
we get uncomfortable when the physical and the spiritual start to overlap.
Yeah.
And I wonder if, I don't know enough about world religions I'm just curious right now if there's something unique about the Christian faith of the overlapping of the spiritual and the physical that may not exist in other religions, but I don't know that's true. So I don't want to take anything away from them, but just the, what's interesting about that is, if that's not just me anyway, because I definitely feel that, and I feel like that's a thing. Like, everyone's okay with spiritual and they're okay with physical, but when they start to overlap, it can feel weird.
Yep.
What's interesting about that, though, is like that was the whole thing with Jesus. Like, he was the spiritual who became physical and then was here on earth, and like that was the ultimate meshing or marrying or overlapping or commingling of like the physical and the spiritual together. So yeah, I think I love that. 'Cause that is sort of what it almost feels like there's a spiritual component to the emotional baggage, like how else would you really, if it's not spiritual, what is it?
And again, that's, I kind of ask for his guidance like each day whenever I'm going into office. So trying to feel out when somebody is in the room, like, are they going to be okay? If we do bring in the spiritual with the physical. And so I would say whenever people are more open to that, it almost feels like there is better breakthrough.
Anything else you want to touch on the emotional piece in particular?
No.
Okay.
I think we covered that pretty well.
Yep. So, back to when you're doing the vial testing.
Yes.
How many different vials do you have in your office?
Goodness. So I kind of have a kit. I have somewhere in the range of like 20 to 30 kits.
Okay. Does it look something like that?
Looks something like that.
That's a lot more than 20 or 30
there. I do not have that many. That may be may have some like allergen type things within it as well.
So you have 20 or 30 vials.
Yeah.
And you're holding them in your bare hand, and then the instrument. Tell us more about that. What is that?
It's just a simple instrument. Basically, any instrument that would allow my finger to be, or my thumb to be able to glide smoothly over it. So in my case, I use, it's a simple Bic pen. So because it's smooth.
You're not talking about an instrument that these people buy from some supplier.
Yeah, and there are some of those out there. So there is one of my mentors within muscle testing, he does use a box. It's called a resonator, and so it's this box that he wears on a belt, and it has like has a disc on it, and he adds like a little water to his fingertips so that it'll glide smoothly around that metal disc. And so then as he's testing, he's continuing to run his fingers along the disc. And we call it a squeaker box, because if it is present within the body, what ends up happening is like this loud squeak ends up coming out of the box. And excuse me, he said, basically you can use this box, it's a great like auditory tool. He said, but you don't have to have it. You just need something that allows your finger to glide smoothly. So Usually I make sure that like I just use a little of my own oil for my skin and that simple instrument. But like as I mentioned before too, like sometimes you can actually hear a squeak
on the Bic pen.
On the Bic pen,
huh?
People are like, "What is that noise?" I'm like, "That's the."
So you're just rubbing a pen.
Yeah. So it's so it would have a little more room on some items, but it would look something like that.
Okay. And so all this is literally, it's an instrument. It's an object.
Yes.
The change comes in your physiology.
Yes. Yep.
Which is changing because you're holding the vial and it's interacting with the energy emitting out of the person.
Yes.
Jeepers, man. Who was your mentor that you just mentioned?
So first was Dr. Martin in Colorado. Unfortunately, passed away while I was still in chiropractic school. Then Dr. There's a couple of doctors. Dr. Hall is one of the cell core practitioners.
Okay.
That I've learned under as well.
Okay. Is there a place where the folks that are doing this can share best practices and new learnings and that type of thing? Is there a forum or?
Yeah. So there are conferences that we go to.
Okay.
I've been to a few different types of conferences too. Just I like learning new things and seeing if there are kind of better ways to practice, which being introduced to the resonating was through one of those things. So Cellcore does some conferences and things like that, and they'll have workshops for muscle testing, for helping people get more confident in their muscle testing as well, or using the resonance testing. There's another technique called contact reflex analysis. It's just it's another kind of method within muscle testing.
Okay.
So there are a few different ones out there. So there are there's lots of like continuing education ways that you can continue learning, maybe better techniques for you. Like I said, for me, finding this resonance testing really helped me in my confidence and knowing that I wasn't introducing any sort of bias,
right?
And helped my confidence in muscle testing itself. Because as a skeptic, like a lot of times with muscle testing, I would think, was that me? So.
Okay, so if someone has, what's the most common toxin that you find in the body?
Good one. I would say I find parasites a lot, in all different types of parasites. But Candida seems to be kind of a big one. Can be that bacterial imbalance within the gut microbiome. Candida is often associated with yeast, but can also be associated with like skin conditions. But it's causes it like an inflammatory process within the body. Here in Nashville, a lot of what I see as well is like mold fungal toxins. It seems like Nashville kind of being this area being kind of like a bowl. It makes me think things kind of fall in and kind of like stay in the area, and as well, this is a humid environment, so a lot of people end up with black mold in their houses or in their air ducts and don't necessarily know about it until they start feeling ill, and then whenever they start trying to figure out, okay, what's going on, I'm like, oh, well, some mold fungal toxins are showing up within your body. That might be an indication. So usually, like whatever I find, again, will either confirm what like Jamie or one of the other practitioners that have sent somebody in for muscle testing, what they were already thinking, or what some of their blood test even was showing. But they wanted just like another confirmation.
I see. So if someone has parasites in their body, you have a vial with a parasite in it, and is it almost like magnets where the same pole or the opposite pole, I forget what that is, where the magnets push against each other?
Yeah.
Is it almost something like that?
Almost something like
with
that.
With the parasite in the body interacting with the parasite in the vial?
Yeah.
Like the energy, it's coming from both directions, and it creates a certain
like charge.
Charge?
Yeah.
Is that how that works?
That's what I would more liken it to is because, our bodies are pretty good conductors of electricity. Just, anytime you're walking around in the wintertime, especially when it's drier and you either zap yourself or zap somebody else. So our bodies are good conduits, which is one of the reasons why the resonating works. I'm kind of making that conduit for my testing. That energetic presence of the particular item in the body is basically kind of like that, almost like an electric charge that has been made.
Well, I know one thing the body is a great conduit for, which is electrical current. I grew up in the country, and anytime we had someone from the city come, we'd be like, we're going to grab onto an electric fence. Do you want to be the first one or the back one? And there'd be like 3 or 4 of us, and we all knew, put him at the back.
You do not want to be the one on the end.
No, you don't. And you're in the middle, you're in the front, no big deal. You feel a little something, no big deal. Hit that back one, man, and whoo. So the body, obviously is a great conduit for an electrical current. I think we all know that or have experienced that. And this is just sort of like, to the 1000th degree or whatever. Like this seems very fragile to me. Is it very fragile? Like you can, it seems like a type of energy that could get muted if you're not careful, or no? It just is what it is, and you're going to find a signal or not.
What I found in my testing, it's either kind of there or not.
Okay.
I suppose it's possible that it could be muted.
But okay, let's say you gave me your vials, and I went to work on old Kobe over here.
Yeah.
Would it work for me too, or do I need?
Once you get that feel,
you would have to understand when the instrument is feeling different.
Yeah.
Okay. So that's the whole thing with the training. Doesn't matter how you really hold the vial. That's just is what it is. You just need to figure out if the
and usually I'm holding the vial between so the vial will be like this. So I'm holding it between my fingertips, and I'm just kind of passing it around the body, different areas of the body, especially once have kind of hit on it. Then I'm figuring out, okay, where is this showing up strongest? What part of the body is this showing up strongest? Is it showing up anywhere else? I find in the realm of parasites, sometimes they're not only in the gut, but they can be up in the chest cavity, they can be in the head, or sometimes they've moved down into like the muscles of the legs. There are other things. We call them co-infections of Lyme. So it's different types of like bacteria. There's another type of parasite called Babesia that is kind of transferred through the bite from the insect, tick, whatever. So I test for those types of things as well. And what I see a lot as far as like with those co-infections of Lyme, those end up in like joint spaces, and which kind of can go along with some of the symptoms that some people feel. in the Lyme field, they complain of like joint pain, joint inflammation. So the things I'm testing for there. So whenever I say that I'm testing for co-infections of Lyme, I'm not diagnosing Lyme's disease or anything like that. I'm just saying, hey, there's some of these markers here. This warrants further exploration.
Mm-hmm.
So,
what would your suggestion be then for people if they want to start somewhere with putting less toxins in their body, or maybe to put another way, what are the toxins you really think people should not be putting in their body?
I would start with my food sources first. I mean, food and water. Mm-hmm. Like trying to make sure that you're getting the best, because I mean, that whole "you are what you eat" kind of mentality. If you start there, that can be a great place to start.
And food, that seems more self-evident, I guess, with you're looking for natural, real food,
Yes.
Few preservatives, no preservatives, etc. What do you think about water? What do you guys do? What do you suggest people do?
Yeah.
We have tap water here, obviously. We have one of those Berkey water filters.
Us as well.
We have the fridge, and for some reason that Berkey water filter isn't working the best. We've been drinking out of the fridge a lot. I don't know what kind of filters on that fridge. I can't imagine it's. So what do you guys do?
I mean, we use Berkey as well.
Okay.
I mean, we do have the refrigerator filters. Some filtration. Again, that whole start with one thing. Start somewhere. So some filtration is better than no filtration. I mean, if you're able to cut down on the things that are coming through your tap water, that's a great place to start. I understand what you're saying with the Berkey. We've sometimes had some issues there, and I think it probably depends on your water sources too. Like, I mean, different areas, they may not have to change out their filters on their Berkey as much.
That could be. Yeah, of course.
But a lot of what I am hearing now, and which kind of was eye-opening for me, because I was always taught distilled water. You don't want to drink distilled water because it will basically rob the body of minerals, because distilled water has everything taken out of it. So it is the purest water that you could intake. Mm-hmm. So what I'm kind of learning now is, okay, take that distilled water, and then if you want to add in minerals back into it, at least you know that your water is the purest water that it can be, and then you can add back in whatever you need. What we have a bottle of just like minerals that we'll add into our water to make sure that the minerals that our body needs is still there.
Are you buying distilled water?
We have, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, often whenever we're traveling,
okay,
is when we'll do more distilled water while we're traveling.
Okay.
I have.
Can you buy it at gas stations?
So Smart Water is actually distilled water.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Do you add the minerals to the Smart Water, or are you just like, yeah, we're going somewhere?
Well, so Smart Water does have things added back into it. So it does have like electrolytes, minerals added back into it.
Really?
Yeah.
So so is Smart Water the best water you can buy at a gas station then?
I would say it's probably one of the better ones.
Okay.
Yeah.
And the only thing that could possibly improve on it is having it in a glass bottle, which is not going to happen.
Right.
But
That's kind of our, we're on the go. It's one of our, okay, let's choose the best option.
yeah.
And so, whenever we're traveling, we're trying to find smart water.
Yeah.
And just hope that our body can process any plastics that.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, that's kind of the hard thing right now. Like the more research I do and the more things that we read about, like plastics are becoming so prominent in a lot of things.
Everything. We have a huge plastic problem and no one's talking about it.
Yeah.
I mean, I think this is something I didn't know until recent years. I think most people have probably heard this by now, but there is a pile of trash floating in the ocean the size of Texas. The size of Texas floating in our ocean.
Yeah.
I mean, we're starting to get plastics now showing up in crazy places like the Amazon and all these places you would never think. I mean, plastic it lasts forever.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't go away.
Yeah.
It is weird to me how one of the things I have noticed is no one likes to be in categories anymore, which I totally understand. I don't like that either when it comes to like right left,
Mm-hmm.
politically and whatever.
Yeah.
I totally get it. I'm totally on board. It's strange to me how some of my friends who are more on the right side of things politically will almost defend plastic. It's almost like
Interesting.
Yeah, it's weird. It's like they've gone so far. This is painting with such a broad brush, but some people are so against the whole like environmental awareness and what's the term? Global warming.
Yeah.
Is there another
Climate
term?
change.
Climate change.
Yeah.
Like they're so against that or whatever. And I don't know enough about it to know, but it seems to me like it sometimes is emotionally charged.
Oh, for sure.
And
but
so I get that.
Yeah.
But that has nothing to do with the fact that when we make this plastic stuff that's going to last forever and ever and ever and never disintegrate.
Yeah.
You have to also agree this seems like a bad idea.
Yeah.
There needs to be a better way than this.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just it doesn't go away, and it's everything. I mean, it's crazy. You know how quickly people buy a tray of bottled water? I mean,
Yeah.
this doesn't have you don't have to do this in
Yes.
most cases. I understand sometimes you kind of need to.
Yeah.
But there's lots of ways we can start to trim down on plastic. Straws. This is another example. That I bumped into a couple of times. It's like some people just feel like, they got to have their straw at that restaurant. Okay, fine. You having a straw at a restaurant, no big deal. But, if I can drink out of a cup and not have that extra straw that's going to last forever, I'm happy to do that. You know, it's like, can we all agree no matter what our political standpoints are and no matter if we think global warming is as big of an issue as some think it is or not or whatever, all that aside, surely we can all agree that making so much stuff out of plastic, which is toxic and never disintegrates, we should limit that as much as possible.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it all comes back to taking care of the place where we live.
Mm-hmm.
You want to live in a clean home, right? I mean, why wouldn't you want to live on a clean earth?
Yeah, no doubt. No doubt. Anything else you want to talk about tonight, Phillip?
No, I didn't know if you wanted to get into like the chiropractic side of things at all, but
yeah, I would love to. I would love to hear about that. Let me ask you this. I have, just to throw me out there as a dummy or a test case.
Yeah.
I have had 2 points of view on this. The one point of view that I have had for some time was, I think maybe I did this 2 or 3 times over the course of my adult life, where I went on a kind of a system.
Mm-hmm.
Pay the whatever it is and go 3 times, then 2 times, then once a week. And And then I was talking to a chiropractor on this podcast. Actually, he owns a physical therapy place in Brentwood called Resilient Health and Performance. Josh Rankins.
Okay.
He's a chiropractor.
Yeah.
And he's not totally opposed to someone doing that if they really need it. But his philosophy is more of, the chiropractor's there when you need it.
Yeah.
If you need an adjustment, you should get an adjustment. If you don't need an adjustment, you shouldn't get an adjustment. And that's sort of where I've landed now.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on that?
Oh, I truly subscribe to the, we are each our own best doctor. We know our body better than any doctor could ever know. So we know when something is off with our body. So yeah, and my goal, as far as, whenever I am treating somebody with chiropractic, is to get them well as quickly as possible. My goal is, within 3 visits, at the most, you should see great progress, if not like a resolution within that time period. Because again, it goes back to our bodies were made to heal. Mm-hmm. So once we have taken away any resistance or hindrances to that healing process, then leave the body alone, let it heal. Mm-hmm. So really, kind of the approach that I take within my office is, if it warrants it, then I'm going to schedule you out a few visits. But otherwise, if you're just coming in for like wellness, I trust you to know your body. And again, kind of the systems that I have set up within the practice too is like knowing what needs to be adjusted, what doesn't need to be adjusted, and leave the rest alone. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So, do you though suggest for pregnant women the Webster technique?
I do love the Webster technique.
Okay,
I'm a Webster technique provider.
Okay,
just because of what I saw with my own wife throughout. So what was nice was for our 3rd and 4th kids, I was her chiropractor, and so I was able to make sure that she was continuing to get the care that she needed. And so really, like the goal with Webster technique is helping mom, helping her body create the best environment for baby to grow, and then for baby to be delivered through. Because if you ever look at kind of a mock-up of the pelvis, so the pelvis, the sacrum, how those all line up with each other, just a millimeter of like difference changes that birth canal where baby is delivered through. And so it can sometimes be the difference between a great birth experience and a hard birth experience.
Really? It can make that much of a difference?
It can.
I mean, Mariana had that for all 5 of our kids, and her mom had 9 babies.
Yeah.
Which is super easy. So I think she has good genetics.
Yeah.
In general for that. But
and you do see that.
She did say she does feel like that helped her.
Yeah.
So it can actually make that much of a difference between a decent or a good birth experience and a bad one?
I believe so, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. I mean, our first birth experience was not a good one. He just, it almost seemed like the whole birth experience almost like had a halt, like it just was not progressing. And then my wife's vitals started changing, and his vitals started changing, and they're like, okay, we got to go to the OR now. And so ended up having to do an emergency C-section for the first, and then because of where we were for our second, was still in the Air Force, was still kind of in that Western medicine frame of mind, and the doctors were like, well, you've had one C-section, you might as well have another C-section. Mm-hmm. And so unfortunately, we would have loved to have had, kids naturally. I do sometimes wonder if, possibly if our story and kind of the way things kind of ended up playing out, if it didn't help us to be a little more able to help people relate as far as in that process. Maybe gave us a kind of a bigger heart for helping people.
Yeah. Why do you think that chiropractic is one of those areas that so many people think is bullshit?
Yeah.
Surely you've heard this, right? Like
this
is
for sure. Yeah.
It's attached to chiropractic care for some reason.
Yeah.
I don't know enough about it. It's strange to me. Like you don't have to get very far before you bump into someone who's like, nah, chiropractic is, whatever.
Yeah.
They think it's quackery or whatever.
Or it's going to kill you.
Well, we do need to talk about someone who got paralyzed. Kobe, text that link. So you got to do it right? Like
yes.
Potentially it can be dangerous. You got to do it right.
And that's too, like, yeah. With the person who was paralyzed, I would want to know, okay, what were the things leading up to that? Mm-hmm. So you do have to do like your due diligence to get a good health history, know what they're coming in with. Because there are people that I will not touch. I'm like, no, you're not a candidate for chiropractic.
Oh, based on
health history. So if they're having like cervical stenosis, if I guess one benefit of another job in addition to chiropractic that I've been in since I've got out of chiropractic school, for a time I was also working in a field called intraoperative neuromonitoring. So I was in the operating room running diagnostic tests on the patient as a surgeon is performing like spinal surgery. So I have seen spines that were so degenerated. The body was trying to basically help stabilize. And so it was adding on bone, basically. And so within the spine, you have your neural foramen. So those are the areas where the nerve roots exit from the spine, go out to the body, right? And so that neural foramen, if there is a, let's say it's C5, C6 within the cervical spine, so that's in your neck. Let's say there becomes an instability there. The body in its wisdom is like, I need to stabilize this. And so it begins trying to stabilize it by throwing down more bone, which can cause an issue if that foramen becomes narrowed. Then what ends up happening is there's pressure that ends up being placed on that nerve root, and then people start feeling like tingling into their shoulder, down their arm, things like that. So if I see something like that, I'm not going to go in and adjust, and I think that's sometimes where people have gotten hurt. Mm-hmm. Is from that kind of that thrust, mm-hmm. Which again, my technique was kind of came out of I was hurt by a chiropractor, but that didn't change my thoughts on chiropractic. So a lot of people like to go to very hands-on chiropractors who will do kind of the twisting and turning, hands-on manual chiropractic. And if you like that, that's great. And if that works for your body, I think that's great. But there are other people who are like me that don't like to be twisted and turned. And so what that started for me was searching out techniques that allowed me to still give an effective adjustment without the twisting and turning, which I feel like helps to lessen that risk involved. But still, if I know somebody has like spinal issues going on, I'm more hesitant to treat them, which is unfortunate that they've gotten to like the point where they can't be treated chiropractic wise, because that kind of lessens their things that are available to them.
Yeah, no doubt. Now, you're talking about something I don't think I've ever heard of. Certainly I've not experienced. There's a way to do chiropractic adjustments without the twisting and turning?
Yeah. So the technique that I utilize is something called torque release technique. So it's an instrumented adjustment. Similar, some people out there may have heard of like activator. So activator is another instrumented adjustment. It was one of the first techniques that I learned. The thing that I always wished about activator was that some adjustments, especially like C1, C2, so those top two bones of the cervical spine, require a bit of like a torque within the adjustment, whether that be to the left or to the right. Activator can't give that. It's just a straight adjustment. I was like, well, wouldn't it be really cool if there was a instrument out there that would allow you to put that torque into the adjustment as well? And lo and behold, I finally found that technique and that instrument. And so, so that's what I utilize now. And so, again, the whole technique that I utilize kind of goes back to the thought of the body being like this electrical circuit. So as I have my patient down on the table, I'm taking them through kind of a series of movements using what we call like leg checks. And yes, there are people out there who have like naturally shorter legs, like that imbalance is just there. But for the majority of us, we should be pretty even as far as like our legs. Whenever we're laying down on the table, your feet are hanging off the end. Those leg lengths should kind of check out.
Be comparable.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so then I am checking, okay, what is going to help bring that back into alignment? And so it's almost like I'm flipping breakers. So I'll basically check different areas of the spine to see what it is that will even out those legs. And if it evens it out, then I adjust there. If I go there and I touch that area and I come back and look at the legs, if that hasn't changed anything, I'm like, okay, that's not the area that needs to be adjusted. And so I think that this particular technique probably played well for me, given my electronic technician background. It made more sense to me.
That's very interesting. So I've not heard. I mean, like I said, I've not experienced this, and I've not even heard of it.
Yeah, there are so many different techniques, chiropractic techniques out there, and I think some work better for others than. But I have found this particular technique very helpful.
Yeah, if people come to see you are not twisting their neck and popping it.
Exactly.
You're not pretzeling them and
no.
Wow. Huh. Okay. So it would depend on why they're coming in, where they're experiencing pain, that type of thing.
Yeah.
One of the main reasons that Mariana will take our kids to the chiropractor is they start to feel a little earache maybe coming on. I mean, she will take them to the chiropractor like that.
Yeah.
So if, let's say they're coming to you because they feel a little earache going on, what are you doing then?
So again, for those kind of wellness checkups, first off, making sure there's no new injuries or anything. Nothing has happened between the last time that they've seen me. Again, we kind of get down on the table and I figure out what needs to be adjusted, what doesn't need to be adjusted. What I find most often with kids and like earaches, it's often that upper cervical area that needs some help.
It is out. There's frequently something that is out.
Yeah.
Do you think that it being out is what could have maybe caused the earache to begin with, or the earache causes it to go out?
No, it's what usually once that is out, like there's so many things, especially in that upper cervical area, but especially with kids and this earache thing, the eustachian tubes then are not like that whole like sinuses and eustachian tubes aren't as open. It's that clogged up eustachian tube that allows bacteria and things to kind of stay stagnant and develop into earache. And so if you make sure that all of that is flowing free and is moving well, then
I see. So if someone's neck is out, it can absolutely cause earache, particularly so in kids.
Yeah.
Okay. What was your injury from a chiropractor?
Was of course, during school, we're adjusting each other. I was just coming in for kind of my regular adjustment. Went to do a cervical adjustment on me. I was lying on my back. I kind of twisted my head and like I felt it at the moment, but it was kind of okay. Went home, went to sleep, and kind of during the night, I like rolled over, and I was like, oh, that really hurts. And like by the morning, whenever I woke up, I couldn't lift my head up off the pillow. Like it hurt so bad that I ended up to be able to get out of bed. I had to like roll off the edge of the bed to put my feet down and then like stand up and keep my head very, very still. What it ended up causing in me was just like an extreme case of torticollis, which is where those muscles in the neck just kind of seize up. And it's very painful because they're just kind of in that state of spasm.
So did they do something wrong?
It could have been just kind of a too hard of a thrust.
Okay, but so they didn't screw your neck up or anything.
The
muscle needed time to relax again, and so you're fine now.
So it didn't cause any like lasting effects for me, but seeing that, I could definitely see if somebody did have like something more serious going on, let's say like that neuroforaminal stenosis, that could cause some issues for somebody.
Do you have that article of that? Can you put it on the? Just curious what his take would be on this offhand. When paralyzed after a visit to chiropractor, now being treated at Shepherd Center. This was August 12th of this year. A Georgia woman who became paralyzed after a visit to chiropractor is being treated in Atlanta. June 16th, she visited a chiropractor in Savannah for an adjustment to her neck. Soon afterwards, she got sick and was rushed to the emergency room. 30 minutes later, okay, tests revealed 4 dissected arteries in Jensen's neck. The damage led to cardiac arrest and traumatic brain injury. Oh, it's unclear if Jensen's injury occurred before or during the appointment with her chiropractor.
Yeah.
But surely that would be clear, right? Like for something like that to happen, you would have to be in a car wreck, right?
Well, so that is a thing. Like how many times as kids did we go through some sort of whiplash injury? I mean, I as a kid, I was a big BMX kid. So I'm sure there were plenty of times that I did have some sort of injury going on.
Sure.
But often what I see there, that statement, it's unclear if it occurred before or during the appointment.
Mm-hmm.
That's where I end up having like problems with things like this and
Sure.
attributing it to a chiropractor.
Right.
Because if you can't say for sure that it happened, to have a dissection of the artery, that would be an extreme amount of force.
Oh, really?
For that to occur. Now, if there is if there is some sort of injury there already,
Mm-hmm.
then yeah, that could be possible.
Yeah, it could be the straw that breaks the camel's back or whatever.
Exactly.
Well, and I guess
and sometimes what I have heard as far as like, well, don't get your neck adjusted because I knew somebody that had a stroke after that. I've heard that. My question would be, well, was there an embolus in the artery beforehand?
Right.
That has just been sitting there and waiting?
Mm-hmm.
Or did a dissection of the artery happen that caused some sort of embolus to occur that would be sent to the brain or to other areas?
Well, I guess in thinking about it from another angle, she was at the chiropractor presumably for some reason.
Yeah.
I have no idea what, but if she had no pain in her neck at all, she probably wouldn't have been at the chiropractor to begin with.
Right.
Having said that, though, it does seem logical. I mean, one way to look at this would be she might have had something going on, some sort of whiplash, maybe some sort of injury that wasn't known. Chiropractor has no idea, does a standard adjustment, or maybe makes a mistake. I don't know. I mean, I assume mistakes can be made.
In all areas.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. I always, that is where I have always felt, I think pretty much I can't think of a time where I feel more physically vulnerable, than when that chiropractor has my head in their hands.
Yeah. Yeah.
And my approach has always been,
way.
I want to go somewhere where, well, preferably you just go to the same place, so you but go somewhere where you've heard about them, they're good, they have good recommendations, and then, just trust the process. Just like if you're in an airplane and you're not the one flying it, you're along for the ride, so if you don't want to take the risk, don't get on the plane to begin with. But is that a common thing?
It is very uncommon.
Really? It always struck me as
but it's one of the things that is always brought up.
Neck injuries
or like stroke or
really?
Or
okay,
something like that.
I've always been shocked that there's not more injuries that occur, because I've actually never heard of a neck injury. I mean, I don't follow along, but that was the first article I've ever seen of someone getting injured. Again, it's unclear whether they got injured at the chiropractor or whatever. It just seems to me like I've always just thought, man, I hope they know what they're doing.
Yes.
Because they are cranking my neck around in ways I would never try to do myself.
Yeah. And to, again, for me, that was why I sought out techniques that would allow me to still give an effective adjustment without having to do that. Because I know that I personally don't like that. Mm-hmm. And I know that there are others out there that don't like that as well. So
that's highly interesting to me, because the logic that I can see, being totally ignorant on these things, is one of the benefits that I have heard and makes sense to me is when your spine and neck is properly positioned, all the nerves that go through there can flow properly, and then you're getting better flow to your body.
Yeah.
That argument makes a lot of sense to me. And if your back is out, your spine's out, your neck's out, now you're pinching nerves, you're limiting flow, you're going to have problems in your body. That makes a ton of sense to me. And your approach makes sense because you're just sort of fixing the places that need to be sort of corrected to get that flow going again. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. I like that.
Yeah. And then with Webster technique, that it's such a gentle adjustment as well. It's just kind of using a combination of both adjustments and then like some soft tissue work to help make sure that or help provide the best environment for mom, for her body to kind of stay in alignment. So baby has best chance.
Mm-hmm. Adults now, active adults, maybe exercise regularly, eating decent. Is there any sort of a cadence you would suggest for them to visit a chiropractor if they're not feeling like something's out?
Yeah.
Like, is it a good thing to go every 6 months or every year or once a quarter, or what's your take on that?
Yeah. And I think it's going to depend on each person too. If they respond well to once a month, if they respond well to every 3 months or once a quarter, there have been times that I've held like my adjustment. So my goal in giving an adjustment is to get it to where your body, given the right environment, given kind of the removal of stressors, and things like that, will be able to kind of hold on to that adjustment, right? Mm-hmm. So, there's been times that I've been able to go like 6 months between adjustments. And I'm sure there's some people that have been able to go longer. But again, I feel like each of us are our own best doctor. We know our body's the best. Once you get in tune with your body and kind of get that feel.
Well, how do you know? What triggers it for you? When you say like 6 months, then what are you feeling? It's like, it's time to go back and get adjusted.
For me personally, I feel it more like in my neck, upper cervical. Things just seem to like be getting tighter. Like I can't get it to like release. One of the things that I utilize at home, as far as like stretching and things like that, I have this thing called a chirp wheel that allows me to kind of, it really hits those paraspinal muscles that are on each side of the spine. Kind of helps those to kind of almost melt and relax as I'm on that, especially after like a long day in the office. I'll really hit like that, my lower cervical, upper thoracic area, because I find myself kind of scrunching over sometimes, and throughout the day I try to be cognizant of like what my body positioning is, and I'll sit up straight again, and whenever I find that no matter how much of like that kind of regular stretching and things that I'm doing, it's feeling kind of stuck, then I know it's time for me to get adjusted again. One of the instruments that I found, or ways of kind of figuring out with the upper cervical area, was we call them like a temperature faucet, or a faucet temperature check. So behind each one of our ears, so between our ears and the occiput, that bony process is called the mastoid process. That kind of that soft space right behind the ear is kind of has a relation to as far as where the C1 is. And so sometimes I'll take like just like a temperature check there and check to see, because those two temperatures should be balanced, right? It should be the same side to side. And if I see that they're too far off as well. So I do that in addition to like how I'm feeling. Let's check this out. See.
Interesting. What do you use to check that temperature?
You can use something as simple as just one of those little thermal scans. So like you're like everyone was pointing at everyone's forehead and that, or the ones where we were placing them like against the forehead or the temple or whatever.
So you just do it right behind the ear?
Right behind the ear. Yeah.
How far down? Like at the bottom of the ear?
So it's like right behind kind of that earlobe. So
there's a bone right there.
So you find that bony process, that soft spot right in there.
So in front of that bone?
Yeah.
It's like behind the jawbone and in front of the
mastoid process.
Oh, okay. So right there.
Yeah.
Right here.
Yeah. And so
interesting. I never heard that. So you can check. The temperature should be the same.
Yeah.
And if one's warmer than the other, it might be time for an adjustment.
Yeah. Yeah. So usually if I see anything like 0.5, or above,
Okay.
different side to side that
Okay.
that says, hey, I might want to get this checked out.
Yeah. I'm glad we talked about that. All right. Where can people go to find you on the internet?
So my website is sozowellness615.com. Go on there, find out a little bit about me, as well as if you want to come see me, you can click schedule now and choose location. I'm in a couple of different locations. Mondays and Thursdays I'm in Hermitage, and then now Tuesdays and Saturdays I'm in Franklin.
Okay. Where are you at in Franklin, by the way?
So right across the street from Urban Market.
Oh, really?
There's a set of buildings. So I rent space out of Haven Birth and Wellness.
Oh, okay.
There.
Yeah. That's more like Cold Springs, right? Or
Yeah.
there's only one Urban Market, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. It's on this side of Franklin.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
not far from here. Which days are you there?
So I'm there on Tuesdays and Saturdays.
Okay. All right. Cool.
Yeah.
All right. Anything else you want to cover?
I think that's it.
Okay. Well, thank you very much for coming out tonight. I really enjoyed this. I'm glad we had this conversation. I do feel like I understand, at least preliminarily, the beginnings of like the science behind that muscle testing thing.
Yeah.
But do you bump into people though that just can't be sold on it?
Oh, for sure.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay.
And I'm to them. I say, God bless.
Yeah.
I hope you find a way. I hope you find help.
Yeah.
And if it's not me, that's fine.
Yeah.
I want people to find help that they need,
Mhm.
and if it's not with me, then that is completely fine.
Yeah. Yep. All right. Well, thank you very much for being on the podcast. Really appreciate it.
Yeah. Thank you very much.
Good night, everybody.
Try to catch me howling at the moon.